I have noticed a pattern. I think we both have noticed a pattern. A lot of people have probably noticed this pattern, but no one has given it a name. It is an emerging subgenre of media that I'm going to call superhero ultraviolence.
I'm trying to think of a more condensed name on that. Superviolence.
Superhero ultraviolence.
That works.
Because it's got the tie-in with ultraviolent.
Oh, I see the plug.
We can say right off the bat for listeners, we're talking about two Amazon Prime productions, The Boys and Invincible, as the current main symptoms of this cultural trend. But it's not just violent superhero movies, which have been around forever. Superheroes are more than heroes. They've got powers. So the stakes are higher than for normal conflict. It's not terrorists are going to get a bomb. It's intergalactic terrorists are going to get an antimatter bomb that will erase reality.
Yeah.
To keep the momentum going, superhero movies need to zoom out and zoom out. Now, where superhero ultraviolence comes in is zooming back in without scaling down. That's how I think of it. So rather than the stakes are high because we're watching an entire city get leveled, it's the emotional stakes are high because we're watching one person burst into a splatter of blood. Spoiler alert for the first 30 seconds of The Boys. It's intense because you're not supposed to see that scale of violence. You're not supposed to see what should be a climactic, like Rorschach in Watchmen. The same thing happens to him, but he's kind of a superhero. He's a superhero without powers, and he volunteers for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he literally asked for it. Yeah, that's the case of you're not... Instead of zooming out, you're adding layers on top of things. So you have your interpersonal layer, you have your civilian layer, and then you have your superhero layer, and then the cosmic layer.
What about the supervillain layer under a volcano?
Oh, God. But yeah, you're not negating, okay, the world's at stake right now, so all my earthly problems are now just suddenly not part of the plot. The earthly problems are still part of the plot. Like anything relating to, if we're going to Invincible, relating to Amber and Invincible's relationship, there was tension because she knew he had to go do these things, but it was still upsetting because there was times on anniversaries or times where a Viltrumite would come down and threaten her life if Invincible didn't go talk to her. Just, yeah, good writing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's two things going on here, I think. One is, yes, the emotional aspect of, there's diminishing returns on how invested you can get in any universe. Same thing that happens with comics. Most comics that are part of the Marvel or DC universe are not known for being all that emotionally compelling compared to one-shots. Things like The Watchmen, which was so emotionally compelling, they had to change all the characters to not be main parts of the DCU because you killed half of them and made the other half villains.
Yeah, you could have Wolverine crucified on a giant X in front of an entire pile of bodies in the world. But there's going to be another run of Wolverine comics later. There's definitely gonna be one of those.
Yeah, so this is where I want to really think about the second element at stake, which is not the emotional hit, but it's the spectacle of it. Because I think this is what is not cross-genre. Good superhero writing is good superhero writing. If you can create a compelling story about the responsibility that comes with powers, with the stakes and navigating these relationships, that translates between traditional superhero stuff and deconstructions of superhero stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Superman, from the beginning, it was this, the entire concept of having your secret identity and his relationship with Lois Lane, and even in one of the movies, I forget if it's the movie or the Clark and Lois show, but yeah, she throws herself out of a building to force him to show her that he's Superman. And I forget what the workaround they did that he managed to save her without exposing his identity, but they managed to do that. And that's in a similar concept, but thematically, it wasn't relying on the disturbing nature of it. That was more of a, I don't want to say comical thing, but it comes across as that due to the universe you built behind it.
Yeah, we know that this is not a serious world. We know that if somebody with superpowers punches someone, you don't think about it too much. Like, they go flying across the room and they're fine. Compared to, and maybe we can get into the technical differences between how The Boys and how Invincible plays with this. In The Boys, it's more about the unstoppable force compared to Invincible is the immovable object. In The Boys, like, doesn't matter how powerful you are, if Newman wants your head to explode, your head explodes.
Yeah.
The unpredictability and the suddenness of this graphic violence is a really big part about how you experience the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why Homelander is written really well, because he has no weakness that has been seen in the show, except for the fact, well, okay, I just said no weakness, I'm about to say the weakness, is they give him this emotional baggage that causes him to be unhinged and that can be manipulated very easily. So then the only flaw to your superhero, which is the alternative to Superman, he has the same power, same everything, is the emotional instability. And that's the thing you can manipulate. Whereas Superman normally is the thing of he's pure, wholesome, everyday young fella.
It's an exact mirror, because Superman, the reason he's an interesting character, even though he can do literally anything, is because he puts limits on himself. Mm-hmm. He is an upstanding character. He doesn't want to put civilians in the way. And I think it was one of the animated shows where he had a whole speech talking to Darkseid, where he's like, I've had to hold back because I'm like, don't want to kill Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But now Darkseid is on his level and he can actually throw a punch full force, and that's just so cathartic.
Yep. If we're talking about throwing punches full force, I might change this over to Invincible real fast. And I'm going to throw in a spoiler warning for season 3, which if you haven't watched by the time this comes out, it's been probably a week or two since the season finale. So, yeah.
The one image that sums up Invincible to me, and this also reflects this idea of superhero ultraviolence as taking the cosmic scale and condensing it down to a single body. This is the season 1 finale where Nolan is fighting Mark, and he punches Mark in the face so hard that it shatters a mountain. I think that is the summation of this amount of power concentrated on not just the body, but specifically the face, which is like your representation of you as a human. You destroy the face. It's a particularly nasty way to kill someone. When Mark kills / doesn't actually kill Engstrom Levy,
it's just face pounding.
Yeah, and that's especially traumatic for Mark, because not only did he accidentally kill this person, but
he took his entire personality away, or entire self away, by demolishing the only representation of yourself.
Yeah, and without a thought even.
Yeah, sentence, I thought you were stronger. I said that aggressively, but it was said so like...
Thought you were stronger.
Mm-hmm. And that's, again, why the title Invincible for the show. I see a lot of people, I know it's probably like in joking way, say for being named Invincible, you get your ass kicked a lot. But the entire point of Invincible, as you said, the immovable object, he can get his ass walloped as many times as needed, and he is still there. And then the times he actually lets out and becomes the unstoppable force, it ends badly for him normally. Except in, I want to talk about the Conquest fight.
We should talk about the Conquest fight.
The power scaling thing, which I'm going to go back to like classic anime power scaling of, I just unlocked my new section. Yeah, you see the power scaling happen, and you're like, oh, he's about to go, and then, oh, he gets whacked to the ground and destroyed. It like takes this concept of power scaling. It's like, nah, fuck you.
Yeah, that's probably a good summation of this whole genre subversion, is taking the idea of power scaling and in whatever way flipping it around.
As Conquest said, just because you got angrier doesn't mean you're stronger. But in the end, which was what brought me the Conquest thing, he throws a punch at Conquest that shatters both their arms. It still follows what Conquest said of just because you got angrier doesn't mean you're stronger. That shows Mark wasn't stronger, but he was angrier because he pushed through what his body physically could take. And then when he has both his arms destroyed, we get back to the Angstrom Levy face demolishing, and he just headbutts until Conquest is demolished. That's, to me, a very fun subversion of the power scaling. Like, yeah, you're not stronger, but you're willing to cause more damage to yourself than the other person is.
Exactly. Every step you take up this power ladder also means the damage that happens during the fight is more intense. It's the polar opposite of the MCU. The epic battles are just two people shooting different color-coded beams at each other that do an indeterminate amount of damage. It might destroy the other person. It might throw them across the room. No one knows. So we're talking about superhero ultraviolence, which is a new subgenre, microgenre we're exploring. I want to classify this as a body genre. Movies that are designed to produce a physiological reaction.
Specifically on your concept of self or physicality, in my understanding.
Yeah, it tends to deal with that as a subject matter because, like, humans are empathetic. So we see things happening to the body, we relate. But it can also be not explicitly, like, having to do with the body. So the original essay that proposed the term body genre is by Linda Williams, and she lists initially horror, melodrama, and pornography as the three body genres. Horror, of course, it inspires disgust. It appeals to your body in that way. It deals with the mutilation of bodies. Pornography, you can see how that same connection would be drawn. Deals with bodies, is designed to inspire visceral feelings.
Oh no, step bro.
Melodrama, the content is not the manipulation of the body in the same way, but it's still the manipulation of emotions, extravagant appeal to expression.
Can you elaborate on that last one?
Anything that's supposed to make you cry.
Okay, that makes sense. It manipulates your body in some way, either emotionally, physically. I got you. But yeah, back to what you were saying.
Body genres. Horror, melodrama, pornography, and superhero ultraviolence. Some of the trademarks of body genre is excess, just extravagance. It's appealing to your body by throwing a lot at you.
Yeah, that's the thing, again, the Boys Invincible both do so well. They're just such, it's the same thing that Terrifier did.
Yeah.
It's like this new version of graphic content, which, so I'm going to go off Terrifier and then lead into the other stuff. But if we're talking the classic, like, slasher films, Terrifier outdoes them. It's doing the same thing, basically, but it's, like, updated to a whole new conceptual way to do it.
It's taking advantage of, what's it been, like 40 years since the heyday of slashers. And now we've got the advantage of special effects on one hand, but also conceptually, like, we have slowly indoctrinated audiences into more and more fucked up concepts. There's still plenty of things to mine from medieval torture methods about how you could fuck up a body even more that we're just not ready to watch on the screen.
Yeah, and now that's like what's pushing the thing, which is why, Terrifier is, I count it as thoroughly 100% a slasher film. It's not there's no psychological thing. If you're reading into the story too much, chill out. There's not that much behind it. I don't care if she has this whole cosplay thing going. I don't care. It's a slasher film, but it's really good at what it does. And that leads back into, we had the Man of Steel, which pushed this idea of the actual impact that superheroes have on their surroundings. You saw the outcome of Superman and General Zod destroying the city. You even had Batman versus Superman that shows, Bruce Wayne's reaction to it and how he thinks we need to have some contingency plans. And that was the intro. And there's The Boys, which I know The Boys was a comic series running before this, but then, like, visually people were ready to see this. And the scene where it was the Daredevil-esque character, the blind one.
Blind Spot.
Blind Spot, yeah. who was just got hired onto the Seven, and Homelander simply just claps his ears because that's his only way of interacting with the world. And he's like, well, now he can't hear, so what good is he? That actually kept me up at night, one of the few media things that I have, because you suddenly eliminated a person's entire sense of existence. You can touch, but so before you couldn't see, but you could still hear, and you were navigating the world. Now you have nothing. You're just in the void. And that was terrifying to me. And it was simply because Homelander was upset that he didn't get a say in the choosing. He probably would have been okay with a guy, but he just didn't get a say. So he's like, send him to the void.
It's very much a cosmic horror way of hitting you. It's like there doesn't have to be a reason for any of this, and anything can happen to you at any time because there are powers that are so far beyond you. Doesn't matter if you're a superhero, there's a bigger superhero.
Going to like human versus superhero interaction. The other one that like really turned the tables on the normal superhero thing of superhero saves person from jumping off a building or saves a person falling. Again, Homelander. He, person on the building about to commit suicide decides they don't want to. And then Homelander basically tells them they're going to jump off the building or he's going to kill them because I guess his relationship was getting messy or something, or I forget if that was pre or post, was her name, Nazi girl dying or getting burned to a crisp. I forget.
It really doesn't matter because he's an eldritch abomination.
Yes.
He can do whatever
and if
he
the
wants.
eldritch god tells you what you going to do when God says you're going to be dead now. If the God tells you you're either going to kill yourself or I'm going to kill you, what are you going to do?
One thing that could be prefaced is that all the things we're talking about in film or TV, which are blurring together because streaming era. But yeah, this has been approached in comics way earlier, just like all of the Marvel and DC things we're watching are really old comic series.
Yeah. The Boys has gone on for a while. Invincible has gone on for a while.
There's just different ways of enjoying television type media. The fact that these are being sent out over streaming services, that you're getting it not just on a page, but with sound in time that you can't control, it creates a different sort of experience from reading the comics. And so this emphasis on the types of gore, there's tropes of gore in The Boys, in Invincible. The head exploding thing is very distinctive because the head, it's a really hard object filled with juicy stuff. It makes cool explosions better than like just a hand.
That is true.
And also the pacing of, I think I mentioned earlier, the suddenness and the interrupt. Playing out a scene that you're used to watching in a superhero film, but interrupting it with a head explosion.
Yeah, because I mean, that's honestly the fastest way to take somebody out, the head. And you normally don't see that in superhero stuff.
It's also got the implication of destruction of identity, like we talked about. They don't show it in superhero things because that's the destruction of the character. And you never destroy a character in comic books, even if they stay dead for more than 10 years, like the character is still there.
Yeah. As Guillermo del Toro said, he doesn't like aesthetic damage. He likes people getting stabbed under the armpit or in weird places that you normally wouldn't see. He doesn't like the scar on the cheek that highlights your jawline. Also, I want to go back to one thing real fast when you're talking about like the streaming and the TV series. You don't get to control the pacing. I think that's why we've also had a lot more of these graphic body type content in superhero things that have been happening in comics for so long, because TV shows that were airing on cable and stuff, you don't, like, ignoring the restrictions they automatically have, you didn't really have a say as a consumer as to what you're watching. You throw it on and it's on. Comics, you had to go and like seek them out directly. And so if you want the disturbing one, you could like skip through the pages and see, oh, someone's head exploded there. I don't really want that one. And now with streaming, it's similar. You can just look through and decide if you want to watch this one or watch not one that is that graphically violent or that like deep into the concept.
Yeah, the consumption model of comics means it's even just more profitable to be able to cater towards niche interests like extreme body stuff. Whereas TV, it's not really a reason to make a TV show that graphic. You're not going to make money off it unless you're a streaming service who has the money up front and knows they have a market, because there's already something in comic books. There's already people who want like that, and there's significant demographics of people who like slasher films who are going to be able to pick out some of the same elements, or people who hate MCU and just want to,
Which is, I mean, entirely why The Boys was written as a comic. And dude was told, like, so the guy who made The Boys is the same guy who made the comic series The Crossed, which is what the movie The Sadness was based off of.
Garth Ennis, is that his name?
That might be. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, The Crossed is basically people just go into their own most demented things they want to do. They just turn into goblins in the worst way. And so they are unconsensually frick-fracking people while murdering them and tearing their skin off and all that everything. Y'all should go watch the movie The Sadness because it depicts it. But yeah, he's the same guy who made The Boys, which makes a lot of sense because he was forced to make The Boys because they told him that he needed to make a superhero comic because his comics weren't selling well enough. And he had a hatred for superhero comics because they thought they were on this just copy and paste method. And he thought it was like too stupid and easy to do. So he made The Boys, which was this deconstruction of superheroes, but not in the way The Watchmen was, more in a way of I genuinely hate every character. I hate this comic. I hate that I have to make it. I hate everybody in this comic. And that led to that energy that really pushes through of the deconstruction. Because it was truly a deconstruction to him from the beginning. And yeah, it just started to keep rolling until it became a TV show, and then you can tell the anger to every character in it. Huey cannot get a day off.
This gets into another feature that's characteristic of body genres. They're really defined by a flimsy set of narrative tropes to justify the main spectacle. I think that's very obvious in horror. It's very obvious in pornography. There's whole categories of movies that are just like sad for the sake of being sad. Mm-hmm. And so one of the complaints and one of the reason people tend to look down on these kinds of works is because it's predictable. It's clearly there to fill a certain physiological niche and not much more.
Some of the Saw movies,
yeah,
like any slasher movie, you can pretty much count down. I will say I love the Saw movies.
Yeah, the ones we remember are the ones with a couple memorable hooks outside of the main feature.
Mm-hmm. I still gotta clarify. First Saw movie, not in this category.
The first Saw movie should not be called a slasher. The rest should be called slashers.
Yeah.
They've all got a similar thing going on, but the narrative structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it is this narrative training you to expect certain things so that you go in knowing what you're going to get and you leave satisfied.
Yeah, the bad slasher movies are when you leave not satisfied. Like,
yeah,
you're not looking for a deep revelation. It's like looking for you go to smoke a blunt and they gave you like that low grade shit when you thought it was going to be like some really good shit. Like, you're smoking the same thing at the end of the day. It's just,
yeah,
was it good what you got? But there's some things that are like, oh shit, you lace this with the Fenty? Oh, now we're really having fun.
Terrifier is the Fenty blunts.
Yes.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is the oregano.
They just gave you oregano with fentanyl. That's what Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was.
So yeah, narrative tropes used to train you to enjoy things in a certain way. On a micro scale, we can talk about jump scares. We're not going to. I don't want to.
I really don't want to. There's so many people who've already talked about that.
But the structure of a jump scare is period of suspense, and then there either is or is not a sudden cinematic change, camera shift, sound effect that will startle you. It's not horror, it's not fear, it's suspense combined with surprise. But there's a pacing to it. And things do jump scares well, or they do suspense well based on teasing you about jump scares or putting it in a way that is satisfying and not annoying.
I will say my favorite is the reverse jump scare. I'm not saying like you think a jump scare is going to happen and then it doesn't, because I find that just as annoying. Of like music builds, no jump scare happens, person turns over, boom, jump scare happens with no music cue. My favorite is the one where the audience gets to choose when the jump scare happens for them. Best thing is dark hallway, person standing there, they're doing something slowly walking towards them, and you can't really see it. It's not obvious. It's like dimly lit. And then at some point, the person's going to look up from what the character in the film is doing and see that thing, and that's their jump scare. They chose to look up, so they decided when it happens. And it's not all what we're talking about, but I just love that concept. Audience decided jump scare. Because then there's some people who will never look up. Because if like the movie then has the character react to it, I don't like that. I like it just being like a between you and the thing in the background.
This to me feels like the Junji Ito page flip.
Oh yeah.
You get to choose the pacing. And to me, what defines a jump scare is the use of auditory cues, even if it's cutting out audio altogether, but there needs to be not just visuals, but a full sensory impact for it to be considered a jump scare. I think that's why we disqualified Junji Ito from having jump scares last time. And that's why this is the like self-selected jump scare. It feels like the page turn to me because
you can peek around the corner.
Yeah, it's more just you need to have a really compelling visual. All the films that come to mind are the things with like really interesting monsters or really interesting like ways of movements. That's what actually gets you. First thing that comes to mind is Portrait of God.
Have I seen the Portrait of God? Is that the short film?
Yeah.
Oh, then I have, yeah. That is definitely in that category.
Just interesting design and like fourth wall breaking-ish. Yeah, in universe it's fourth wall breaking, and it's like got the lingering implication because that's how media works. If it can break one fourth wall, it can break them all.
Yeah.
Thinking about slasher films is helpful in how we think about these are copy-paste narratives, just like superhero films. But the fact that some people actually enjoy the copy-paste narratives in service of a greater function. For instance, I love horror movies and plenty of cliche kinds of horror movies as well as cliched superhero movies.
Marvel got away with it for several years now.
Because every once in a while, they also do good stuff. Mm-hmm. Their main snags were that it became too reliant on the plan. I think that's well accepted. And that they started getting away with formula without hooks. Just they released a bunch of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey type knockoffs of whatever IP they could get their hands on.
Because the first Iron Man movie, it was really fighting for, we have to show people that comic book movies are good.
Yeah, this is also coming off, of course, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man Dark Knight trilogy. Mm-hmm. So comic book movies are becoming acceptable, and because they're becoming acceptable, they're also establishing a set of expectations, a way to watch the movie, and you know what you're getting into more or less. But once audiences start to expect things, then directors can start subverting expectations. The start of this whole superhero ultraviolence trend, I personally am going to trace back to James Gunn in several ways. Earliest is Super, which I think it happened at the same time as Kick-Ass, and they were doing a similar thing, but Super was less interested with like the emotions and sociology of superhero-dom. Like, yeah, Kick-Ass actually cared about superheroes. Super was on the boys' mindset of, yes, but our superheroes are mentally ill, and when people die, they explode. Faces get blown off if you get shot with a gun. Not pretty little holes.
Main scene, dude, I wish I remember the actor's name. Dwight from The Office being like, hey, no cutters or no budding. I forget which terminology he used, but it was like, yes. And then he walks away, and then within a minute walks back. He's like, what? You're just the same guy. And then he's whacked with a wrench over the head. and then whacks the girl as well. And the same thing, everybody in line knows it's the same dude. And I liked that change of, yeah, you put on a costume, but we can tell it's you. And Kevin Bacon's character also brought a lot of joy because of his subversion of the whole villain thing. He wasn't doing anything. I mean, he was doing a lot of things that were bad, but
That was good because at the start, you didn't know. Like, you were in the perspective of Rainn Wilson's character, and he has no reason to believe that this dude is an asshole.
yeah,
But he didn't know it at the time.
he did. He was just upset that she left. And then we get tentacle porn at some point.
Oh, yeah, Jesus tentacle porn.
Yes, sir. That's what we're in the movie for, really.
Yeah.
And Nathan Fillion shows up at some point, right?
He's the Jesus superhero.
Oh, yeah. As Nathan Fillion should be.
But yeah, super is only half of what I have to say about James Gunn in the context of superhero ultraviolence, because one of my favorite examples of using metatext and paratext to your advantage is Suicide Squad remake.
The Suicide Squad versus Suicide Squad.
It is the Suicide Squad. And the Suicide Squad film was hyped up with massive A-list cast as really crazy C-list superheroes.
You had Pete on that. I forget his last name.
Pete Davidson.
Yeah. Nathan Fillion. All the regulars.
James Gunn's brother. What's his name?
Flandergun.
Not even close.
Nathan Gunn.
Probably not. He's very fun, but I'm not going to bother to look it up because I'm
Jim
trying
Gunn.
to remember my line of thought.
Yeah.
That's just James Gunn.
Close
Yeah.
enough.
A-list cast playing C-list supervillains, which James Gunn is coming off Guardians of the Galaxy. So his, like, what people know him for is taking C-list comic book characters and making them amazing.
Remind people real quick that there was these characters on things of hair dye. They had a hair
yeah.
dye line.
It was marketed.
Pete Davidson had a blonde hair dye line that I bought and used. It was all of them were on the ads.
And then half of them were killed in the first 5 minutes. Like, Pete Davidson was shot in the face.
Give them 8 minutes. It was at least 8.
If you count the opening production credits.
Also, Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker, yes, again, James Gunn, regular. You go into this movie with the assumption that Michael Rooker is like the main character.
He's in the opening scene.
Yeah, he's the perspective character for the whole opening scene. And Michael Rooker and James Gunn have this relationship. So when he, like, just swims away and his head explodes.
Head explode.
That is the moment.
You built up all this tension from everything that just happened, and like this was the big battle that normally you'd expect to like see everyone show off their skills. And yeah, everyone showed off their skills. Their skills were just trash.
The terrible characters that they were hyping up and making merchandise of turned out to actually be terrible, and they died.
I believe Harley is the only one who survived that entire thing.
And then, for the psychoanalytic theorists out there, you can suck on this. Michael Rooker swims away and big head explosion. Very juicy. It's an excellent climax.
I was gonna get it like way more academic, but hey, if it works, it works.